What does the Speaker of the House have to do with an ancient biblical prophecy? And why are whispers about a red heifer suddenly exploding across the internet? Today we dive into the footage, the faith, and the political firestorm. Because this isn't just a story about cows. It's a story about power, prophecy, and plans. It began, like so many modern controversies do, with a shaky camera, a few seconds of grainy footage, and a caption designed to light the internet on fire. The clip, barely 40 seconds long, allegedly shows House Speaker Mike Johnson stepping out of a white van at a dusty site in Israel's Shiloh region. Behind him, a handful of men in traditional religious garments stand near a fenced enclosure. Inside, the unmistakable shape of a young, reddish-brown cow grazes quietly under the midday sun. In the video, Johnson appears to greet the men, exchange a few words, and then glance toward the animal. A voice, not his, says something about preparations and the heifer's time coming soon. The footage ends abruptly, leaving viewers with more questions than answers. The first appearance of this clip wasn't on a major news channel. It surfaced late at night on a small, prophecy-focused Telegram group before quickly leaping to X and YouTube. Within hours, it was picked up by fringe commentary channels, each adding their own theories and dramatic titles. Proof of prophecy? America's Speaker at the Third Temple Gate. And the one that went most viral, Mike Johnson at the Red Heifer site. End times confirmed. Reaction was immediate and divided. Supporters of Johnson dismissed it as out of context or even AI manipulated. Others claimed it was clear proof that he was actively participating in preparations for a biblical ritual tied to the end times. Conspiracy theorists had a field day, connecting the dots between his known evangelical Christian faith, US-Israel relations, and the ancient ritual involving the ashes of a red heifer. But here's the question: why does the presence of a politician near a reddish cow cause such an uproar? The answer has nothing to do with livestock, and everything to do with an ancient prophecy that has stirred hope, fear, and political tension for centuries. To grasp why the Mike Johnson clip caused such uproar, we must revisit Numbers 19, a nearly 3,000-year-old command for sacrificing a flawless red heifer. Burned entirely with cedar, hyssop, and scarlet wool, its ashes mixed with water purified those made ritually unclean by contact with death. For most of Jewish history, this was an obscure law, something ancient priests performed in the wilderness or near the temple in Jerusalem. But here's where things get complicated. According to Jewish tradition, this ritual hasn't been performed for nearly 2,000 years, since the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, and that's where prophecy enters the conversation. In Jewish eschatology, the appearance of a perfectly unblemished red heifer is seen as a necessary step before the rebuilding of the Third Temple. Without the ashes of such a heifer, the priesthood cannot be ritually purified, and the temple cannot be restored. The catch? The Torah's requirements are so strict that even 2 non-red hairs can disqualify a calf from being used in the ritual. That's why red heifers are so rare. They're not just a genetic fluke, they must also remain pure from birth until sacrifice. In evangelical Christian prophecy circles, the red heifer takes on a different but equally dramatic meaning. Many believe the ritual's restoration will signal the fulfillment of key end times prophecies, setting into motion events that culminate in the return of Jesus. This belief, deeply rooted in dispensationalist theology, has driven a decades-long fascination with red heifer sightings, especially in the United States and Israel. And there have been attempts, lots of them. In the 1990s, a red heifer was born in Israel and sparked global headlines, but a few white hairs appeared, disqualifying it. In the 2000s, ranchers in both Israel and America tried selective breeding, often in partnership with prophecy-driven organizations. In 2018, reports claimed that 5 flawless red heifers had been flown from Texas to Israel, carefully monitored to ensure they met biblical requirements. So why is the red heifer so rare? It's not just the genetics, it's the prophecy-shaped expectations surrounding it. Every time one appears, it becomes more than a cow. It becomes a symbol that, for some, marks the countdown to world-changing events. And here's the question. If the reappearance of such an animal is tied, in some minds, to the fate of nations and the future of the world, what happens when one of the most powerful politicians in America is allegedly seen standing right next to one. Because this isn't just theology, it's geopolitics, faith, and influence, all converging in one dusty, sunlit moment, caught on camera. And that's where Mike Johnson's story enters the global stage. Before he was standing in front of a red heifer in grainy online footage, or at least a man who looked a lot like him, Mike Johnson was a lawyer from Louisiana with a knack for both courtroom persuasion and political strategy. Born in 1972 in Shreveport, he rose through state politics as a conservative Republican with a strong focus on constitutional law. By 2016, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, quickly building a reputation as a disciplined, quietly influential figure. Johnson's rise to power was steady, but 2023 changed everything. When the House found itself in a leadership crisis, Johnson emerged as a compromise candidate who could unite the GOP's often fractured factions. Take 2017, when President Donald Trump formally recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and moved the U.S. embassy there. When American officials visit the Western Wall, plant trees in Judea and Samaria, or attend ceremonies in Jerusalem, those moments are often photographed and broadcast, not just as diplomatic niceties, but as spiritual statements. In certain circles, even small symbolic acts, a prayer, a meeting with a rabbi, a stop at a sacred site, can send ripples through both political and prophetic discourse. And that's where things get complicated. Symbolic acts can also be political messages. A handshake at the right place, a photograph at the right time, can energize a base or trigger accusations of religious bias, foreign entanglement, or even hidden agendas. In a media landscape where every image is dissected frame by frame, the location matters just as much as the words spoken. So when grainy footage surfaced, allegedly showing the Speaker of the U.S. House at a location tied to the red heifer prophecy, it didn't just land in conspiracy forums. It tapped directly into the intersection of faith, foreign policy, and the apocalyptic imagination. Was this simply another stop on a diplomatic trip, or was it a deliberate nod to a deeply symbolic prophecy? Because in this climate, a visit to the red heifer site isn't just tourism, it's a message. The question is, what exactly is that message, and to whom was it intended? Now let's move from the broad stage to the specific spotlight. The next step is to dissect. Clothing and timing give us more to chew on. Public photos from Johnson's trip, including official images released after a dinner with Prime Minister Netanyahu in Shiloh, show Johnson in the region the same day reporters say he visited Ariel and Shiloh. News outlets covering the trip noted the delegation and the unusual nature of a speaker visiting settlements, which helps explain why any image from the area would draw attention. But again, being in Shiloh doesn't automatically mean he toured the red heifer enclosure. Several outlets reported that Johnson's office did not immediately respond to requests for comment about aspects of the visit, which left a gap that rumor filled quickly. Independent witnesses? That's where things get thornier. Local Israeli and international press confirmed Johnson's presence in Shiloh and meetings with officials, but no mainstream news organization produced verified footage showing Johnson beside the cows. Instead, the clip appears first on prophecy-oriented social channels and X/Twitter threads that stitched it to the speaker's trip, a rapid amplification pattern familiar from other viral moments. Prophecy commentators and fringe accounts then cast the visit as a deliberate act. Skeptics warned of misattribution or deliberate staging. Experts and fact-checkers caution against jumping from similarity to certainty. Journalists remind us that politicians often travel with packed schedules, meetings, dinners, photo ops, and that photos taken in public places are easily recontextualized. Religious studies scholars and Middle East correspondents stress that symbolic visits can be interpreted many ways, but proving intent requires more than a single edited clip. So what do we actually have, verified? Johnson visited the West Bank and was photographed in Shiloh. Red heifers have been publicly reported as being kept in the West Bank. Social media has circulated a short clip purporting to show Johnson at a heifer site. Not verified, a definitive, independently authenticated video of Johnson standing inside a red heifer enclosure, and any official statement tying him to a prophecy-based purpose. Whether the footage is authentic or cleverly misattributed, the narrative has already escaped the video itself and taken on a life of its own. Now we move from evidence to reaction. How did people respond, and what theories filled the vacuum once the clip hit the feeds? Once the clip hit prophecy forums and political Twitter X, it spread like wildfire. Within hours, hashtags like #RedHeifer, #MikeJohnsonProphecy, and #ThirdTemple were trending in niche religious and political corners of the internet. For prophecy enthusiasts, this was no ordinary political trip. It was confirmation that biblical milestones were in motion. Comment threads lit up with scripture quotes, speculative timelines for end times events, and debates over which global leaders were secretly in the know. Critics argue Johnson's alleged visit boosted controversial religious projects in Israel, risking volatile consequences. Theories ranged from a secret evangelical Israeli alliance to fulfill prophecy, to strategic steps toward rebuilding the Third Temple, to a deliberate distraction from US domestic woes, each fueling the political and religious storm. Skeptics were quick to push back on all of these claims. They pointed to the absence of hard proof that Johnson ever stood beside an actual red heifer during his West Bank trip. Analysts emphasized how easily unrelated footage could be paired with real-world events to create a viral gotcha moment. Others reminded audiences that politicians often participate in symbolic tours without fully endorsing the agendas tied to every stop. And yet, despite the lack of verification, one question continued to hang in the air. Why does a single unverified clip have such power to ignite global speculation? Whether authentic or not, the controversy exposed something far larger. That in the age of instant media and deeply held beliefs, a few seconds of video can spark debates that are driven as much by identity and worldview as by objective fact. Prophecy-related narratives are not just theological curiosities. They can sway how people vote, what policies they support, and even how nations interact. For millions of Americans, especially within evangelical circles, biblical prophecy isn't distant history, it's a living guide that informs political priorities today. A politician seen as aligning with these prophecies can instantly galvanize support from a passionate base. In the era of viral media, the blending of religion and politics becomes even more potent. A single image or short clip can bypass traditional news filters and land directly in the hands and hearts of viewers who interpret it through their own beliefs. Whether the footage is verified or not becomes secondary to how it feels to those watching. Social platforms amplify this effect, allowing like-minded communities to form echo chambers that reinforce their interpretations. Suddenly, what began as an unconfirmed video isn't just a piece of content, it's a rallying point, a proof text, or a warning sign, depending on who's watching. The Johnson Red Heifer controversy also underscores a broader reality. Politics and religion don't operate in separate lanes. When they merge, they create narratives that can influence everything from foreign aid decisions to diplomatic stances on the Middle East. The clip itself may fade from the trending lists, replaced by the next political flashpoint, but the tensions it revealed between faith and policy, symbolism and state and camera